Four children taken from their families. But the strangers were sent by a US-based Christian charity. How and why did this happen? I wanted to find out more. The International Justice Mission, or IJM, is a multi-million-dollar charity based in Washington, D.C. It works all over the world.
We have the proven vaccine that could end slavery within our lifetime.
May God continue to lead us until all are free.
In Ghana, its mission is to combat child slavery on Lake Volta. Thousands of children work in the fishing industry here. IGM claims more than half have been trafficked. But I have heard stories that the charity is causing some children to be taken away from their families rather than reuniting them. To investigate, Africa Eye went undercover. Our reporter posed as an intern. Her work phone gave us access to hundreds of WhatsApp messages from IGM's rescue missions. And this is how I got onto the trail of Operation Hilltop. The phone revealed in the early hours of the 6th of September 2022, 11-year-old Fatima, 10-year-old Rashida, 5-year-old Zulia, and 7-year-old Mohammed were taken from their village and relocated to a shelter. Their families were not told where they were. At IGM's headquarters in Accra, staff celebrated.
Our team set out on a rescue operation with the police and were able to rescue 4 victims.
According to the phone's messages, this is the village where Operation Hilltop took place. This woman saw what happened. She says the children were her grandchildren. She was looking after them alongside their other grandmother. We gathered the rest of the village to hear their version of events.
Right
now, the children are scared to even come to school. They think that when they come to school, they might end up taking them away.
2 of the children's uncles were arrested and prosecuted for human trafficking and child labor offenses. I challenged them on the charges. The prosecution was eventually abandoned, but it took 4 months before the children were allowed to return home. Fatima is the eldest child. IGM sent us this statement.
Government social workers may independently decide to remove children who show clear signs of abuse or neglect, even if they are not victims of trafficking and or living with their family.
The Ghanaian Social Services said staff acted professionally after IGM sent them a letter, which we have seen, describing the 4 children as trafficking victims. A social services investigation found the children had not been trafficked and should be reunited with their families. The Ghana Police Service did not respond to our inquiries. Back in Accra, I met up with Dr. Sam Autry, an outspoken critic of Lake Volta's child rescue missions.
We have had so many instances where families have told us that their children have been taken under quite violent and oppressive conditions as victims of trafficking.
I wanted to see what he thought of some of the undercover reporters' secret filming.
They have targets, like maybe 2021, they are going to rescue 100 children. So they should achieve that. If they don't achieve that, they should have a tangible reason why they didn't achieve that. They're given a budget and everything to rescue 50 children. And then you spend your energies and your time on other things and you're only able to rescue 25. You'll be assessed.
Welcome back here on the show. This is Friday morning, and it's time for us to get into Prime Insight this morning. Now, you saw the documentary over there. It's what we're talking about today. So, around 1 million children are trafficked worldwide today, and there's also a growing concern about the fact that global economic crises keep on increasing, and kids are the forefront of this. I want to take a look at it. The International Labour Organization has been actually leading a fight against this in the past few years, and it's taken it a struggle to actually achieve this. Now, Ghanaian children have been taken from their homes in an operation that is backed by one of the world's leading anti-slavery organizations, IJM, according to the BBC Africa Eye investigation. The multi-million-dollar charity International Justice Mission aims to rescue trafficked children and reunite them with their families. But serious concerns have been raised about the West African operations here, especially in Ghana. The BBC Africa Eye investigation embarked on what they call as the Operation Hilltop, and actually exposed an alleged operations of those organizations. And we're here to actually take a critical look at the situation. The video you saw, the documentary you saw, is what our background is in terms of the conversation we're having this morning. Now, in the studio with me is the Honorable Betty Crosby Mensah, and she is the Member of Parliament for Afram Plains North. Also joining us via Zoom will be Dr. Samuel Autry. He's a senior lecturer in sociology, University of Bristol, UK, and Kwachi Afre Nyama is the BBC Eye Africa producer, and they are joining us via Zoom. Gentlemen, if you can hear me, good morning. Let me first of all also greet my Honorable MP in the House. Honorable, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you. And good morning to you too.
Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. We appreciate you so much. Gentlemen, if you can hear me, good morning. And how are you all doing?
Good morning, KMJ. How are you?
All right, great. Thanks for making time for us this morning. Let me first of all start with Honorable. Honorable, how do you see the whole picture of what is happening right now and what it's come to your table to actually, in terms of the kids that are involved in this trafficking?
Thank you very much, Justice. First and foremost, let me express my appreciation to Joy Pram and yourself for granting us your platform to have further discussions on the subject matter. Again, I want to also express my profound gratitude to BBC African Eye because to me, I think they have done a yeoman's job. I actually started throwing light on the subject matter where back in 2017. And most of the media houses actually didn't see the situation as I saw it. And even with my colleagues back in Parliament, I remember very well when I did a statement on the floor of Parliament, other members of Parliament kind of disagreed, and others believed that I was rather trying to promote trafficking within the communities. So I say a big thank you to BBC for taking their time to do their own investigations into the situation and by coming out with this revelation, because of course when you take the opportunity to see the documentary and the video, then you know what is happening within our communities. Indeed, I live with the situation. Most of the documentary, or better still, the children who have been rescued, I would say most of them are coming from my constituency. In 2018, CNN vis-a-vis IJM did a documentary that about 20,000 children are trafficked on the Volta Lake. And to be exact, I own over 222 communities on the Volta Lake.
That's a lot,
so most
yeah.
often I tell people I own the Volta Lake because most of our friends from the Volta region, they live around the Volta Lake, but my communities are on the lake.
Yeah.
And so when they do a lot of this rescuing, they come directly into my constituency. And I did a lot of work. I've had the opportunity to interact with the families. I've had the opportunity to engage even those NGOs and then to let them know that the situation is not as they want the world to look at it. In your preamble, you talked about 1 million children being trafficked.
Yeah.
Who is doing the counting? Who is putting that kind of information out there? And so organizations like IGM go out there and then they do the publication, because I think the last time in 2017 when they raided my communities, they came out with about over 100 children have been rescued. And you know what? At the end of the day, we did a thorough work with the Ghana Social Welfare, the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection. And Justice, do you know what came out? Less than 4 of these children were the actual issues of trafficking.
Whoa.
And yet, that details never was changed. And so nobody knew that the actual data had to be amended.
Yeah.
And so this is what we live with. And so it is being thrown out there just so these people can get funding from international communities. I don't really care and I don't mind where they get their money and what they are using their money for. But I feel that the children of Ghana need some level of protection. The people of Ghana need to be protected. And that is why I sit in this chair.
Okay, very well. I'll get back to you. Now, Niyama, let me find out from you, beyond all the reasons that have been given in the documentary, which of course is the reason why we had to embark on this investigation, what other reasons did your team actually find out? And it's the main reason, or some of the reasons why you decided that you want to embark on this project?
KMJ. So to place the issues in perspective, I'll touch on what triggered this investigation, and I'll also touch on the key issues that this documentary raised. So more than a year ago, people close or familiar with the activities of IGM tipped off the BBC Africa Eye team about what they considered as worrying developments so far as IGM's operations in Ghana is concerned. So we got to work, and this was at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. And at the time, most of the borders across the world were shut, Ghana's borders included. So we did our initial evidence gathering. And once Ghana's borders were open, we had the opportunity to also visit communities in these areas which IGM operates. For example, I went to the Afram Plains area, some of these islands like the Pala Island and the fishing communities in those areas. And so in that process, we were able to gather the necessary evidence, initial evidence, which led us then to the next stage of the investigation, which was what triggered the undercover operation with my colleague working as an intern at IGM. So primarily, what triggered this investigation was the concerns that we had received relative to the what those sources familiar with IGM operations are described as worrying, but also highlighting the key issues, KMJ, that this documentary raises. First of all, we provide evidence of a target-driven culture at IGM. For example, in the undercover footage, you had there the interaction with one staff of IGM and undercover operative, where she said essentially that for your continuous stay in the organization depended on your ability to meet a certain number of targets. In the documentary, we provided evidence of that staff saying again that you could lose your job if you did not meet those targets. And those the target priorities were linked to their donor funding. And indeed, this is what the experts who reviewed our documentary with my colleague Chenchehene Boateng, Dr. Samotri, who is on the Zoom as well, described as worrying, and he feels could provide an incentive, not in a positive way, to IGM staff to go the extra mile. Again, we identified a certain Rambo-style approach from what the residents in Moina, for example, told us in the 2022 Operation September, Operation Hilltop. The grandmother of two of the children said a gun was pointed at her throat. Indeed, she also indicated that the IGM team did not identify who they were or why they were there. Fatima was grabbed by the legs and her hands and taken away. The other two children were also taken away, where the families did not have any idea where they were being taken to. The third key issue which this documentary raises, backed by evidence, and I urge everyone to take time and view the documentary on our YouTube page, is that IGM provided unreliable and contradictory information to, for example, the Department of Social Welfare prior to Operation Hilltop, which led to these children being removed and separated from their families. They had told the Department of Social Welfare that the 4 cases match the category of child trafficking, while in the documentary we provide evidence that IGM knew prior to this Operation Hilltop that 3 of the cases did not fit that specific criteria. But I need to indicate that IGM has told BBC Africa Eye that in terms of targets, they set those targets to evaluate their output so they can assist the government organizations battling child trafficking, and also they do not decide which children are taken into care. That's the Department of Social Welfare. And finally, IGM has also told BBC Africa Eye that they do not take decisions regarding who is arrested or prosecuted, as well as which cases of trafficking are pursued.
Okay, very well. So, as at this moment, what's the safety of the people like? Those who are involved like? Because if it has to reoccur again, then definitely they have to be protected somewhat.
Well, again, looking at in specific case of the Moina residents in the northern region, the Napale area specifically, they have told my colleague in the course of doing this investigation that the grandmothers, for example, have indicated that at the time the children were taken away, they were afraid that they were going to be killed or they had been killed. The understanding also is that a lot of the children in the Moina village now fear or are reluctant to go to school because because of how this entire incident unfolded, the Rambo style and all that. And the understanding again is that the chief of the Moina village died out of shock as a result of his grandchildren being taken away. And so this is in looking at it in terms of the impact it has had on them. And as we indicate in the documentary, KMJ.
Very well. I may have to let you go, but before that, just hold on for me. Let me ask this question again from Doctor. Now, Doc, if you can hear me, hello, Doc, can you hear me?
Sorry, the line.
Okay, but is it okay now, Doc? Doc, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, so I want to find out, are you surprised that this humane activity is actually backed by an anti-slavery organization?
The question, the line was a bit...
Okay, is it okay now, Doc?
Yes.
Okay, if you can hear me, I'm asking that, are you surprised, or were you surprised when you saw the documentary that it was actually backed by the activity, the inhuman activity is actually backed by an anti-slavery organization?
No, I wasn't, because I have been researching this issue a decade. I've been looking at activities of anti-trafficking organizations, children's work in mining, and since 2017 on the lake as well. And across so many similar cases, I mean, the BBC took a very 2 cases. So many others where of these organizations have, just or right. I would say as many injustices right to be wrongly, and so I wasn't surprised at all.
Doc, unfortunately, we're having difficulty hearing you in terms of the network connectivity. So we'll try and see how best we can work around that. But let me come back to you, Honorable. What's the impact of the situation in your constituency right now?
Justice, seriously, as I said, this is not the first of its kind. It's more or less a regular activity that you find these NGOs anytime they are looking for, I would say, they are looking for victims. They'll just sweep into the constituency, go in, pick children, take them away. We are unable to locate where these children are kept. The family members do not know the whereabouts of their children. And to my surprise, even the local police, that is the district police, is not even involved. So they cannot confirm where the children have been taken to. Wow. I remember in 2017, when I first came in contact with the situation, I quickly had to drive to Ho Regional Police Command to meet with the victims. And even that, IJM insisted of not allowing me to come even close to my own community children.
Really?
Yes, I couldn't have access to speak with the children. And so I had to come back to Accra, write a letter through the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection for their intervention before I was able to assess the children. Some of them had been taken to Pram Pram, some of them had been taken to Ashama, some of them had been taken to Swedros. I had to travel all around to be able to assess the welfare of these children. So indeed, at the end of the day, you realize that most of these children were really traumatized because, look, they were taken at a gunpoint. And like I reported earlier on, the Rambo style of the arrest, I don't call it rescuing, I call it arrest. And the breadwinners of their family are then taken into custody, prosecuted and jailed. As I speak to you now, I think from 2019 to date, there were 9 family members that were taken from my constituency. They've been prosecuted, and as I speak, 2 of them have been jailed. And so this issue has been going on for some time now. Now my question is, if you are taking breadwinners from their comfort zone, what happens to their family members? What happens to the other children? As we heard of the story of, is it the lady, the woman who was in prison? They left her little baby there without even assessing the situation. So what happened to some of this family? So I feel that, look, in as much as some of these NGOs, the objective, because of course, before even the ministry gives such NGOs the mandate to go ahead and operate, of course, you assume that the objective is positive and it is meant for the well-being of correcting some social vices. But at the end of the day, I think because of lack of proper monitoring and systems in place, this kind of objective, positive objective, turned out to be abused. And by so doing, these children and their families, it leads to them being disintegrated. Because of course, as I speak, there are some families who do not know the whereabouts of their children. They do not know the whereabouts of their children. And so what are we doing? Do you think that we can go to the US or we can go to the West and go and take people's children from their home because we Ghanaians feel that something is not right within their system? I think that there's more work to be done. I will not just leave the blame at the doorsteps of the NGOs. I feel that stakeholders, as governments, as leaders of our communities, we should all be interested in what happens to the Ghanaian. You understand? We should be very much interested. It's not the usual job. If you listen to the documentary, listen to what the IGM staffers did. The focus was meeting their target. The focus was getting a promotion. The focus was getting a raise. They were not looking at the harm they were causing to these children. And so if we don't move from this self-serving attitude of Ghanaians, of course, today, these are the children of the people of Afram Place. The next time, we don't know where it's going to go to. I mean, as the deputy ranking in charge of gender, children and social protection, of course, we have situations, we have issues with streetism. Look at Accra. So if any well-meaning NGOs wants to do rescue, this is the capital of Ghana. Why are you not doing it? Whilst the police, the IGP, the ministries, everybody is here to monitor your activities, but you decide to drive all the way to Afram Plains, where 222 communities, we only have access to less than 10 basic schools, and you argue that the children are supposed to be in classrooms instead of being in the fishing. Who built a school for them?
Okay, Neoma, let me find out, maybe before we wrap up, because our time is fast spent, but I want to find out after this, what's next? What's the next stage of the entire investigation? What are we looking at?
Well, at this moment, I can only speak to what we present in this documentary, and the Department of Social Welfare has told the BBC Africa that moving forward, the IJM may need to seek additional permissions before they embark on any operations, and this is to provide and ensure more accountability and transparency in terms of the operations, and also the overall impact that the operations has on these communities.
Have you had any reports from the people and how they feel about the entire situation as well?
Once again, KMJ,
I'm asking that. Has there been any feedback from the people and how they feel right now after the investigation?
Well, the residents of Moina and the other people we interviewed in this documentary have told us how they felt about this IJM operation, specifically Operation Hilltop in September 2022 and Operation Freedom in Echiamam from where Amlade spoke. And the families indicate that these separations and the fact that the children were separated from their families and the way these operations took place left them traumatized. And in those specific instances where immediately after the operation, they did not know where the children were. As they said in the documentary, they found it quite worrying.
Okay, Fred, many thanks to you, Fred, for joining us this morning. We appreciate you, bro.
Thank you.
Great. Honorable, before we go, what are you doing in support for these people in terms of psychological effect that they would have come to them mentally and all that?
Justice, to be fair, in fact, I haven't just left them, especially with the case in court. I have actually personally provided them with a legal team that is seeing to it. It is quite expensive, and so I feel that the time has come. With this revelation, I'm actually seeking and hoping that the government of Ghana is going to set up a committee to probe into the investigation that had been revealed by BBC. Again, I'm just developing a statement to the Speaker of Parliament, which I'll be delivering, hoping that at least I feel whenever you have the opportunity to interview most of these NGOs, I think there's probably a clause in one of our, that is the Trafficking Act, that they feel that, look, the law says that every child found on the lake is assumed to be trafficked.
And that has to be corrected.
That aspect. And so it is coming from our own laws. And so I feel that the time has come for us to draw Parliament's attention vis-a-vis the Committee of Legal and Constitution to review some of these laws, and if there's a need for us to amend them, taking into consideration the cultural, the traditional setting of who we are as Ghanaians. So yes, I am seeking that the government should go further and investigate into the matter. We should not just leave it to the media and the international community to talk about our situation. We are the Ghanaians. We have our stakeholders. We have our leaders, and the welfare of the Ghanaian should be at the prime cause and the heart of the leaders of this country.
Honorable, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate you. Honorable Betty Crosby Mensah is the MP for Afram Plains. We also had Dr. Samuel Oche also joining us, and Kwachi Afre Nyama also joining us. That's our time for this morning here on Prime Morning.